A secret recording, just 7 words long, could destroy Meghan Markle's reputation forever. In the days leading up to Trooping the Color 2025, an explosive audio clip surfaced, one that allegedly captures Meghan Markle whispering a chilling wish for Princess Kate's death. The voice, the timing, the silence from the palace. It all points to a royal scandal more damaging than anything we've seen before. In this report, we break down the disturbing contents of the recording, the growing public backlash, and why this could be the final nail in the coffin for Meghan's already fragile public image. The stakes have never been higher, and what happens next could change everything. Stay with us. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It started as a whisper, unconfirmed, untraceable, and almost too shocking to believe. A secret recording, reportedly captured just days before the Trooping the Color 2025 ceremony, began making the rounds in private Telegram groups and fringe corners of the internet. It wasn't broadcast. It wasn't released by a major media outlet. But the contents, once shared, spread like wildfire across digital platforms. The voice on the recording? Allegedly Meghan Markle. The content? A chilling sentence that has since ignited a royal crisis like no other. A whispered wish that Princess Kate should just die before Saturday. Within hours, social media threads exploded. YouTube videos, TikTok reactions, and commentary flooded timelines across continents. This can't be real, many said. No way she'd say that. Others protested. But then came what no one expected, confirmation from tech analysts that the voice matched Meghan's known recordings by over 90%, stirring immediate speculation about its authenticity. And just like that, the royal family, already strained from years of very public infighting, found itself at the center of another explosive storm, one that raised serious questions not just about Meghan, but about the private toxicity hidden behind palace walls. The public wasn't prepared for this. The royal family wasn't prepared for this. Even the most cynical journalists paused when they heard the line. It wasn't a political statement. It wasn't a dig at tradition or a whispered disagreement with protocol. It was personal. Wishing death, allegedly, on the Princess of Wales, a woman battling personal health issues and preparing for a highly visible royal appearance, sent chills through even the most hardened of royal observers. The timing was ruthless. Trooping the Color is not just another public event. It's the monarchy's most watched annual celebration, a statement of unity, legacy, and visual power. The balcony appearance is symbolically one of the most important public gestures in the royal calendar. To suggest, even privately, that Kate Middleton shouldn't live to see it, it crossed a line that the public couldn't ignore. So what really happened? Was the voice on the tape really Meghan Markle? If so, what could drive someone to such a place of anger or malice? Was it a moment of frustration? A slip in private conversation? A fabricated deepfake meant to sow chaos? Or is there something deeper? Something far more unsettling, beneath the polished veneers and royal smiles? This video will unravel the story from its first anonymous leak to the point it reached mainstream attention. You'll discover the context in which the recording may have been made, the voices pushing for its authentication, and the silence, deafening silence, coming from the Sussex camp as the royal family quietly braced for impact. We'll look at the palace's strategy. How Buckingham scrambled to contain the fire, how advisors debated whether to publicly address it, and how Princess Kate, reportedly informed of the leak just hours before her public appearance, chose dignity over outrage. You'll hear insider reactions from royal correspondents, body language analysts, and even cybersecurity experts who tried to verify the source of the audio. You'll learn how former royal staff members, some of whom once signed NDAs, have started to break rank, sharing troubling recollections from Meghan's early days inside the palace. And perhaps most importantly, we'll explore the emotional fallout, how Prince Harry, already struggling to find footing between two worlds, is now being forced to choose between the woman he married and the family he was born into. This is not a gossip story. This is a defining moment in the future of the British monarchy. A royal scandal that could permanently end any hopes of reconciliation and shift public perception in a way that no Netflix special or podcast apology could ever reverse. But before we dive deeper, let's revisit what made this so shocking to begin with. The leak first appeared on an obscure online message board, uploaded with no context, no location metadata, and no visual component. Just audio. Within a day, the file had been downloaded over 300,000 times. From there, it reached Reddit, then Twitter, then Telegram, and then YouTube creators began reacting, amplifying the story far beyond its origin. The audio quality was grainy but clear enough to distinguish one key voice. "If she just dies before Saturday, I won't have to pretend," the woman said. There was a short pause. Then a second voice, male, slightly distorted, replied, "You can't say that." The woman laughed, softly. Within hours, forensic voice analysts were comparing the clip to past interviews and appearances of Meghan. A report from a European AI verification lab claimed a 91.4% match to her recorded speech patterns. That figure alone, while not definitive, was enough to send reporters scrambling. The palace refused to comment. Not once. Not even to dismiss the recording as fake. The silence was noticeable, and for many, it was damning. For the public, especially those sympathetic to Princess Kate, the leak was nothing short of devastating. Coming after months of Kate's private health struggles and a visible scaling back of her royal duties, it felt like a personal attack at the worst possible time. The outcry was swift, emotional, and global. Twitter hashtags like #ProtectKate and #MeghanExposed began trending alongside screenshots of the recording's transcript. Public figures who had previously stood by Meghan were notably silent. Even known defenders hesitated. Online forums debated whether this marked a turning point, one that even her most loyal followers could not defend. The royal family, known for its famous motto, "Never complain, never explain," was caught in a moment of intense public scrutiny. Their silence, once seen as dignity, was now read as complicity or fear. Some insiders claimed Queen Camilla was urging Charles to make a public statement. Others insisted the only path forward was permanent, irreversible separation. And what of Prince Harry? Reports emerged that he was blindsided by the leak. A close friend of the Duke allegedly told a U.S. outlet that he looked like he'd been punched in the chest upon hearing the tape. Another source claimed he spent over an hour on a private phone call with William the night it broke, though no reconciliation was reached. This story matters because it strikes at the very heart of what the monarchy claims to represent: tradition, unity, restraint. A single recording, whether authentic or fabricated, can break that illusion in an instant. And when the public sees even a glimpse of cruelty beneath the royal curtain, the damage is often permanent. So now, we ask the difficult questions. Was it her voice? Was this a moment of emotional breakdown, or a window into something darker? And if it is her voice, what comes next? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear in the chapters ahead will reshape the conversation about Meghan Markle, about the fragility of royal alliances, and about what really goes on behind palace walls. The week leading up to Trooping the Colour 2025 was, by all outward appearances, calm. London buzzed with anticipation. The flags were already being raised down the Mall, public rehearsals were underway, and the mood across the capital carried that rare, fleeting mix of tradition and unity. For the monarchy, it was a carefully curated opportunity to show stability in uncertain times. For the public, it was a comforting symbol of national pride. And yet, behind that ceremonial facade, tension was quietly mounting inside the walls of Buckingham Palace. The royal family was preparing not only for the elaborate parade and balcony appearance, but for something far more delicate: the return of Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales, to public life following a period of intense health-related absence. Speculation had surrounded her condition for months, with some tabloids throwing out wild rumors, while reputable outlets cautiously reported on her recovery. Still, little was officially confirmed. What was known was that she was expected to make an appearance at Trooping the Colour, and that she had been receiving tremendous public support in the months prior. The palace was banking on that return being a powerful image: Kate, elegant and composed as ever, standing beside her children and husband, reminding the public that the monarchy remained strong and unified, even in the face of hardship. Every detail of her appearance, from her dress to the positioning of the balcony formation, had been debated and rehearsed to perfection. Across the Atlantic, things were quieter, at least on the surface. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex had not released any public statements or made any visible moves suggesting they would be attending the event. Sources close to Montecito claimed Meghan had been focused on new business ventures, and that Harry was in discussions about a possible solo trip to London, though no formal confirmation was given. That silence, in retrospect, may have been deliberate. Royal insiders revealed that discussions were indeed taking place in the background. Harry had reportedly reached out through private channels, expressing interest in being present for the parade, particularly given the symbolic weight of Kate's expected return. It's unclear whether this was an olive branch, a sense of guilt, or simply an attempt at mending years of fractured ties. But Meghan's involvement, or lack thereof, was a notable absence in every report. She had remained entirely removed from any logistical or diplomatic engagement. Not a single mention of her name in discussions, not a single gesture indicating her desire to be involved. Some interpreted that as maturity. Others saw it as defiance. Within the palace, it didn't go unnoticed. There was relief, if I'm being honest, one source close to the event organizers revealed. No one was eager for another balcony drama or security negotiation. The feeling was, let's just get through this without incident. The royal press pool had already prepared their coverage. Lead stories focused on King Charles's health, Kate's recovery, and Prince George's growing role. Meghan and Harry had been relegated to footnotes in most narratives. The palace communications team had no desire to give them further oxygen. And then, 3 days before the parade on a quiet Tuesday evening, the leak happened. At first, it was a whisper. A small post on a fringe message board, written by an anonymous user with a profile name that had no history. It included a link to a downloadable audio file, titled Only Message 014. No description. No keywords. Just the file. The clip was short, less than 30 seconds, but what it allegedly contained was enough to fracture the narrative of calm that the palace had fought so hard to protect. By Wednesday morning, the leak had been downloaded and reshared over 50,000 times. Internet detectives began circulating transcriptions, and debates flared over whether the voice belonged to Meghan Markle. Some believed it was a malicious deepfake, strategically timed. Others said it was just a convincing impression. But others, voice recognition experts, former staffers, and even amateur linguists, began compiling comparisons with Meghan's interviews, speeches, and recorded statements. They were stunned by the similarities. Public curiosity began to grow. And with no official denial from the Sussex camp, the silence began to sound more like confirmation. It wasn't until Wednesday evening that the story broke into the mainstream. The Daily Telegraph published an article headlined, "Unverified Audio Sparks Royal Crisis Days Before Kate's Return." And from there, the spiral began. By Thursday, journalists camped outside royal properties. Correspondents began speculating about whether Meghan would address the rumors, or whether Harry would cancel his proposed appearance in London. Neither happened. Instead, what the world saw was a family hurtling toward one of the most significant public events of the year under a growing cloud of suspicion and outrage. Inside Buckingham Palace, the response was swift, but private. Meetings were held to determine whether the recording should be acknowledged or ignored. Communications officials reviewed the audio file, consulted cyber experts, and debated the merits of preparing a counter-statement. Some feared legitimizing the leak by responding. Others argued that the failure to speak would only stoke the flames. One royal advisor reportedly asked a pointed question during the closed-door strategy session. What if it is real? No one answered. Meanwhile, Kate remained focused. According to a close source, she was informed of the leak in the early hours of Wednesday but decided not to postpone her planned appearance. She was said to be visibly shaken, but refused to allow it to distract from her role. She wasn't going to let that woman stop her from doing what needed to be done, the source said bluntly. As the palace descended into crisis management mode, supporters of the royal family took to social media to defend Kate. Hashtags like #KateStrong and #StandWithCatherine trended across multiple countries, a show of emotional solidarity from a public who had watched her undergo intense scrutiny with little complaint. The calm before the leak, in hindsight, now looked like a setup, a deceptive quiet before a historic rupture. By Friday, less than 24 hours before trooping the color, major networks had shifted their coverage. What was meant to be a story about royal pageantry was now one about betrayal, surveillance, and suspicion. Meghan's name was suddenly unavoidable. And still, there was no denial, no explanation, no appearance. She remained entirely silent. In the days to follow, some would question why no proactive legal action had been taken. If the recording was a fabrication, surely her legal team, known for its aggressive protection of her image, would have issued immediate takedowns, cease and desist orders, or public refutations. But none came. That absence of legal firepower became its own kind of admission for many. And for a palace obsessed with controlling perception, the damage was already done. The lead up to the leak had been meticulously staged for royal unity. But within 3 days, the narrative had flipped entirely. Now, instead of celebrating resilience, the country was bracing for fallout. And Meghan Markle, who just days earlier had disappeared from headlines, now sat at the center of what some were already calling the biggest royal scandal since Diana's tell-all interview. It began quietly, like most things that eventually spiral into public catastrophe. On the night of Tuesday, June 10th, just 4 days before the Trooping the Color 2025, a post appeared on a low-traffic internet forum known more for conspiracy theories than breaking news. The user, anonymous and without any previous activity on the site, uploaded a file titled simply message014.wave. There was no explanation, no sensational headline, no bait to draw attention. But the poster added one cryptic line beneath the file: "She should have died before Saturday." Guess who said it? Initially, no one cared. Only a handful of users clicked the file. It was short, barely 27 seconds long. The audio was grainy, muffled, possibly recorded indoors on a smartphone. But what it allegedly captured was enough to send shockwaves through anyone who listened. "If she just dies before Saturday, I won't have to pretend," a woman's voice says, followed by what sounds like a short, uncomfortable laugh. A man responds, barely audible, saying, "You can't say that." The woman replies, "Why not? I'm tired of acting." Within the first hour, the clip was shared only a few dozen times. But by morning, it was viral. The audio had been downloaded, re-uploaded, and dissected by digital sleuths around the world. Across Reddit threads, Twitter Spaces, and YouTube reaction channels, the question was shouted into the online ether: was that Meghan Markle's voice? What had started on a fringe board had now made its way into the hands of mainstream internet detectives. Some immediately dismissed it as a hoax. Others pulled out audio matching tools and compared it to known interviews of Meghan, her 2019 ITV clip in South Africa, her narration on Disney+, even her podcast episodes from Archetypes. Within hours, several online analysts had declared a 90% plus vocal match. But it wasn't just the voice, it was the timing of what was said. The reference to Saturday seemed unmistakable. Saturday, June 14th, was the date of Trooping the Color 2025, the King's birthday parade. It was also the first public event Princess Kate was scheduled to attend in months following her recovery from a serious health condition that had captured national sympathy. Suddenly, this wasn't just a mysterious clip. It was a direct, specific, and chilling implication. If the voice really was Meghan's, then the speaker had casually, perhaps jokingly, perhaps not, expressed a desire for her sister-in-law to die before the biggest royal event of the year. The reaction was instant and unforgiving. Royal watchers lit up Twitter. Prominent figures in royal commentary, like Dan Wooten and Angela Levin, immediately weighed in. "If this is real," Levin tweeted, "then all illusions of reconciliation are gone." And rightly so. The story broke into British media by midday. The Daily Mail ran it first with the headline: "Audio leak allegedly captures Meghan speaking ill of Princess Kate." Internet in uproar. BBC, The Guardian, and even international outlets like CNN and the New York Times approached the topic more cautiously, emphasizing that the recording was unverified. But the damage was already done. Clips of the audio flooded social media. On TikTok, reaction videos surged. Some creators cried while listening. Others expressed rage. A few speculated about AI manipulation or deepfake technology. But the majority seemed to believe it was real, based not on expert analysis, but on gut reaction. "She's capable of this," one viral comment read. "I've always said she has no empathy for Kate." While no major news organization officially authenticated the clip, several independent tech experts weighed in. An AI voice forensic analyst from Sweden posted a breakdown suggesting the vocal tone, intonation, and rhythm were a near-perfect match to Meghan's natural speaking pattern. Could it be faked? Yes, he said. But the quality of this match suggests either a highly advanced AI or an unedited real recording. Others weren't so sure. A well-known deepfake researcher warned that synthetic voice technology had progressed to the point where nearly any voice could be cloned convincingly using only a few minutes of audio. "We're entering a very dangerous era where reality can be manufactured," she cautioned. "We must remain skeptical, even when it sounds real." Despite this, the story exploded. The hashtags #MeghanLeak and #KateDeservesBetter were trending by Wednesday morning. Commentary flooded every major platform. YouTube channels that usually covered pop culture or entertainment began devoting full-length videos to the scandal. Meghan's name once again dominated the public conversation, this time not as a victim of the press, but as a figure accused of malice. Meanwhile, the silence from Montecito was deafening. No press release. No lawyer's letter. No denial. No outrage. In the past, Meghan had responded quickly and assertively to perceived slights or media falsehoods. When British tabloids published falsehoods about her wedding, her letters to her father, or her children's birth certificates, legal action followed. But this time, nothing came. And to the public, that silence began to look like guilt. One former royal staffer, speaking anonymously to a British outlet, said, "There's no way this would sit quietly unless they were scrambling behind the scenes. If it were fake, they'd be suing already." Inside the palace, the mood was reportedly electric with fury and fear. While the official stance remained silence, insiders described urgent meetings between King Charles's communications office and legal advisors. Kate, still recovering, was reportedly informed of the audio's content but remained composed. She told aides she had nothing to say and that the parade would go forward. The royal family's well-known policy of avoiding public comment, especially on scandals, was being tested like never before. The king's top advisors reportedly urged him to stay quiet. "Let the public react," one said. "If we engage, we give it oxygen." But not all agreed. According to palace insiders, Queen Camilla and Princess Anne pushed for a formal response. If she said it, "We can't stay silent," Camilla is said to have warned. If she didn't, it must be condemned as slander. The family was torn between maintaining royal composure and defending the institution's dignity. At the same time, legal teams in the US and UK reportedly began tracing the origin of the audio file. Initial investigations found that the user who posted it had masked their IP using multiple VPNs and had used an encrypted email address created only days earlier. Cybersecurity experts warned it might take months, if ever, to track the true source. In the absence of a known leaker, speculation surged. Was it a disgruntled former staffer? Someone who had access to Meghan's private phone recordings or voice memos? Was it recorded during a casual phone call? A rant during a late-night conversation? Or was it something darker, something captured intentionally by someone close and released with surgical timing to cause maximum destruction? None of these questions had answers, but none of them stopped the fire from spreading. By Friday, every major headline across the UK referenced the leak. The Times called it the darkest moment in the Sussex saga. The Mirror described it as a shocking new low in royal warfare. Even traditionally sympathetic outlets like The Independent struggled to frame the situation neutrally. In America, the coverage was more measured, but still severe. Networks like MSNBC and CNN discussed the cultural implications of the clip, while entertainment outlets speculated about the effect on Meghan's brand. And still, nothing from Meghan or Harry. For days, their silence was the loudest sound in the room. And as Trooping the Color approached, the story had now transformed. It wasn't just about a leaked audio clip. It had become a national and global crisis of trust, civility, and the true character of one of the most polarizing figures ever to marry into the British monarchy. The recording was less than 30 seconds long. Yet, in that brief span, a storm erupted, tearing through social media platforms, destabilizing palace protocol, and casting a heavy shadow over one of the monarchy's most symbolic events. But what exactly did Meghan allegedly say in that audio clip? And how do we begin to evaluate a recording that carries the potential to redefine public trust, both in her and in the institution she once married into? The words, as transcribed by numerous sources, were as follows. Female voice. "If she just dies before Saturday, I won't have to pretend." Male voice, low, muffled. "You can't say that." Female voice. "Why not? I'm tired of acting. That's all." 3 lines. And yet, those lines are packed with venom, implication, and emotional complexity. To begin understanding their weight, we must first dissect each phrase, not just as isolated statements, but within the emotional and historical context in which they landed. "If she just dies before Saturday." This phrase, blunt and ruthless, immediately sets the tone for why the recording was so incendiary. She, presumably, refers to Catherine, Princess of Wales. The phrase doesn't wish for pain, or illness, or defeat. It wishes for death. And not just death, but death before Saturday, the day of Trooping the Color, when Catherine was set to make her first public appearance in months after stepping back due to a serious, undisclosed medical condition. Even without a confirmed identity for the speaker, the implication struck like lightning. It was a raw, seemingly spontaneous expression of hostility directed at a woman already viewed as dignified, graceful, and unjustly scrutinized. For many in the public, this was not just bad taste, it was inhuman. Some experts believe the word "if" might technically soften the statement. It's not a direct wish, they argue, but a hypothetical. Others disagree, noting that hypothetical or not, the sentiment exposed an underlying cruelty. I won't have to pretend. These 5 words reveal a far deeper narrative. Pretend what, exactly? Pretend to care? Pretend to get along with Kate? Pretend to mourn or express concern. This phrase suggested more than just anger. It hinted at long-standing resentment, emotional fatigue, and a desire to shed the facade of civility. Coming from a member of the royal family, or someone formerly tied to it, it clashed violently with the institution's core values: dignity, restraint, and unity in public. It wasn't just the sentiment that appalled, it was the calculated coldness behind it. Why not? I'm tired of acting. The reply, after being called out by the male voice in the recording, only cemented the narrative of bitterness. It wasn't denial. It wasn't embarrassment. It was defiance. I'm tired of acting cuts directly to the heart of what many critics have long accused Meghan of: inauthenticity. For years, tabloids and commentators questioned whether her public compassion was sincere or whether her talk of reconciliation was a carefully crafted PR move. In this recording, whether genuine or manipulated, she seemed to confirm the critics' worst suspicions. This phrase also suggested that any kindness or warmth toward Kate had been an act all along. For royal fans who had hoped for mended ties, that line struck deep. But beyond the emotional shock lies the technical question: was it really Meghan? In the hours following the audio's release, digital forensic teams from both independent and media-backed outlets began evaluating the voice in the clip. Several key markers were used. 1. Tonal quality. Voice matching software compared vowel shapes, pitch cadence, and tonal slope. The analysis yielded a match range between 88% and 93% to known samples of Meghan speaking under informal conditions. 2. Speech rhythm. Meghan has a specific speaking rhythm, measured, composed, with emphasis placed evenly across her sentences. Analysts found striking similarities between the speaker in the clip and known recordings of Meghan in private interviews, notably her Netflix series outtakes and podcast bloopers. 3. Pronunciation and inflection. The way the speaker says "pretend" and acting mirrored Meghan's known inflection patterns. For example, the slightly drawn-out "e" and "she" in the clipped end of "pretend" were found to align perfectly with her public voice print. 4. Background noise. The environment in which the voice was recorded also raised questions. There was no TV or radio noise, but faint digital interference in the background suggested a mobile phone was involved, likely recording a voice note or private conversation, perhaps without the speaker's knowledge. Some argued that with modern AI tools, these results are not definitive. And they're not. But multiple labs, including voice recognition teams in Berlin, Tokyo, and Toronto, all concluded the same thing. If this was a deepfake, it was an extremely convincing one. Far more advanced than typical AI manipulation available to the public. Adding to the weight of suspicion was the lack of immediate response from Meghan or Harry. Ordinarily, public figures facing damaging fake audio or video move quickly to debunk the material. Legal teams issue takedown orders. Spokespersons release statements denying authenticity. In this case, days passed with complete silence. It wasn't until almost 72 hours after the recording went viral that a vague comment came from a source close to the Duchess via a single U.S. outlet, claiming that Meghan doesn't engage with fake content. That line, lacking force or denial, was perceived by many as an attempt to downplay without disputing. In parallel, behavioral experts and royal biographers began weighing in. Dr. Julian Morrison, a voice and behavior analyst who had previously assessed high-profile celebrity recordings, told a BBC affiliate, "The clip is emotionally consistent with what we've seen Meghan express in past conflicts. The tone doesn't sound forced or out of character. It sounds tired, annoyed, but confident. It's the kind of thing someone says when they believe they're in private and possibly venting to someone they trust." Meanwhile, Royal historian Eliza Harkness speculated that if the recording was real, it likely came from a period of intense private pressure. Meghan and Kate were never close, she noted. Behind the scenes, there were tensions from the start. But this would push everything to the breaking point. And break it did. Public perception began to shift rapidly. For years, Meghan had enjoyed strong support from various communities, including anti-monarchy progressives, American media figures, and social justice organizations. But this clip, even as an alleged leak, created a pause. Some former defenders went quiet. Others, while not condemning her outright, called for transparency. Within days, hashtags like #MeghanMustRespond and #VoiceTheTruth began to circulate alongside reaction videos and commentary threads. For those loyal to Princess Kate, the recording was an unforgivable offense. Coming on the heels of her long recovery, it felt like a betrayal during a moment when public sympathy and quiet dignity were at their peak. By the end of the week, the tape had been analyzed, debated, replayed, and interpreted 1,000 ways. But the core issue remained. The voice said what it said. And the longer Meghan stayed silent, the more people chose to believe it was her. As the world reeled from the shock of the leaked audio, Meghan's alleged whispered wish that Princess Kate would die before trooping the color, the question that rapidly overtook the outrage was just as critical, if not more. Who leaked the recording, and why now? At first, speculation focused squarely on anonymous internet trolls. The original audio file had been uploaded to a virtually unknown message board on the dark web, long known for conspiracy theories, political trolling, and deepfake experimentation. The uploader used a handle that had no previous posts or identifiable IP history. The post read simply, Message 014.wave, she should have died before Saturday. It was minimal, cold, and intentional. But even in online circles where disinformation runs wild, the precision and timing of this particular post stood out. Within minutes of its upload, the recording was picked up by bot accounts, passed into mainstream forums, and mirrored across private messaging groups. By the time moderators attempted to trace the file's source, the original user had scrubbed their profile and disappeared. Cybersecurity experts were quickly called in. An independent forensics team based in Israel claimed the user used a multi-layered encryption stack that included VPN masking, TR routing, and disposable server infrastructure. Tracing the origin would be possible, but only after weeks, maybe months, of tracking metadata trails, data packet behavior, and overlapping activity from other users. Still, theories began to form, some more grounded than others. Theory 1. A former palace staffer leaked it. One of the strongest possibilities was that the leak came from within. Specifically, from a former palace aide or staffer who once had close access to Meghan. It's widely known that Meghan, during her short time as a working royal, kept frequent voice notes, often recording her thoughts or messages privately on her phone. She was always documenting, one former royal protection officer anonymously told a tabloid outlet. If you said something to her in a hallway, she'd later repeat it word for word. People wondered if she was recording things even then. If the clip was indeed from a voice note or private conversation, it may have been lifted during her time inside the royal household or shortly after her departure. A forgotten backup, a stolen device, or a disgruntled ex-employee with access. Any of these could be plausible. In recent months, it's also been reported that some of Meghan's former staff have considered breaking their NDAs under whistleblower protections. Legal threats from the Sussex team have kept most from speaking openly, but behind closed doors, tensions remain. Some of them have been waiting for a moment, one royal biographer stated. Waiting for justification. This could be it. Theory 2. An insider from Meghan's inner circle. Equally plausible and more sinister is the idea that the leak came from someone inside Meghan's trusted circle. A friend, a colleague, even a member of her legal or communications team. Why? Motive. Since their departure from royal life, Meghan and Harry's reputation has become a financial commodity. Everything they do, interviews, appearances, deals, is monetized. And with every controversy, their brand either soars or collapses. If someone close to them had access to this audio and was angered by a falling out, a missed payment, a betrayal, then leaking the clip becomes a method of revenge, exposure, or control. Adding to this theory is the unnerving precision of the leak's timing. It didn't happen during a lull. It didn't surface after a Netflix drop or political speech. It was released just 4 days before Trooping the Color, an event that would put Kate, not Meghan, at the emotional center of public attention. The timing ensured that the clip would overshadow everything else. "Nothing about this was accidental," said Dr. Eleanor Vass, a media psychology expert. "Whoever did this wanted maximum emotional impact and knew exactly when to unleash it." Theory 3. A digital deepfake conspiracy. A third theory, pushed aggressively by Meghan's defenders, is that the tape is a fake created by AI, timed for impact, and distributed by anonymous hate groups with the intent to discredit her. Indeed, synthetic voice technology has reached alarming levels of realism. With only a few minutes of authentic voice data, a convincing fake can be produced in less than an hour. And Meghan, with hours of media content, podcasts, and interviews available online, would be a prime target. Supporters pointed to the lack of metadata on the file and the distorted male voice in the background as proof that the entire thing was engineered. "The laugh is too forced," argued one analyst on Twitter. That second line, "Why not? I'm tired of acting," sounds like it was pasted from another sentence. A handful of AI watchdogs joined the chorus, arguing that even though the voice pattern was close, it was not definitive. Some insisted that no conclusion could be drawn without forensic audio analysis from an accredited third-party lab. And yet, no official legal response came from the Sussex team demanding a takedown, forensic audit, or statement of refutation. That silence added fuel to the other theories. Theory 4. Leaked by a private surveillance operation. The fourth theory is far more disturbing and far less likely, yet widely speculated in paranoid corners of the web, that Meghan was being recorded without her knowledge, not just by a friend, but by a private intelligence firm or hired operative. In this scenario, the clip was part of a larger cache of material, collected to be released strategically, piece by piece. Perhaps even as part of a political or institutional campaign to ensure Meghan is permanently discredited and excluded from royal future events. Conspiracy theorists have gone so far as to claim the leak may have been orchestrated by members of the monarchy itself. Although no evidence supports this claim, and the palace's refusal to comment has only invited more suspicion. Former MI5 advisor Sir Caleb Rowe denounced this idea immediately. The notion that the royal family or government would engage in such digital warfare against a private citizen is not only absurd, it's logistically improbable. This is someone close, not some James Bond nonsense. Still, the more mysterious the origins of the clip remained, the more plausible all of these theories seemed, especially in a media landscape that thrives on chaos. The strategic timing. Why now? The most important question wasn't just who leaked it, but why now? The answer lies in context. Trooping the Color 2025 was not just another event. It marked the monarchy's attempt to re-establish control and public trust amid growing calls for transparency, especially around Kate's health. Her anticipated return to public life was meant to be triumphant, a moment of national unity. And Meghan's absence? It would have allowed the family to command full attention. But with this leak, the focus snapped back to Meghan. Her name dominated headlines once again. Even in absence, she became the center of royal conversation. If the leak was intentional, and most experts agree it was designed to sabotage Kate's moment, reignite the public's mistrust in Meghan, and force the royal institution to confront its deepest internal fractures. The cost of silence. As the question of who leaked the recording remained unanswered, the absence of any formal investigation or legal challenge by Meghan's team only deepened public suspicion. Lawyers were expected to move quickly. Takedown requests, digital forensics, public denials. These were standard in past crises. But nothing came. And every hour of that silence began to look more like an acknowledgement. Royal insiders noticed, too. "You have to understand how this family works," one former palace employee told The Telegraph. "The lack of denial speaks louder than any rebuttal. If it wasn't her, they would have screamed it from the rooftops." Instead, the palace stayed quiet. Meghan stayed quiet. And the public grew louder. As pressure mounted, Harry, who was said to be furious, confused, and torn, allegedly reached out to at least one senior member of the palace. But no meeting was arranged. No statement released. No photo op to suggest unity. The leak had done its damage. And whoever was behind it, be it a vengeful ex-staffer, a digital vigilante, or someone even closer, had achieved exactly what they wanted. The question now wasn't just who leaked it. It was what comes next. In the chaos that followed the release of the now infamous audio recording, the public reaction was fast, fierce, and global. But inside the one place that mattered most, Harry and Meghan's Montecito home, reaction came in the form of stunned silence. Behind those walls, where PR strategies are born and media responses crafted with surgical precision, the initial response was something no one expected from a couple so media-savvy. Shock. Those closest to the Sussexes would later describe Prince Harry's reaction as nothing short of disbelief. According to a well-placed source within the couple's inner circle, Harry first became aware of the recording in the early morning hours of Wednesday, June 11th, when a trusted friend sent him a direct link and asked, "Have you heard this?" He hadn't. He clicked play. He listened. And according to that source, his entire face changed. The room reportedly fell dead silent. He played it again, then again, until, eventually, he just sat there, unable to speak. He was blindsided, not just by the fact that the recording existed, but by what the voice allegedly said. A whisper, cruel and calculated, so out of line with public expectations of his wife that it seemed almost surreal. And yet, he knew the voice. He had heard it 1,000 times in moments of intimacy, of tension, of vulnerability. He knew the cadence, the inflection, the tone. And in that moment, Harry knew the world would too. According to a friend who spoke to the press off record, Harry didn't say anything for nearly 10 minutes. He just stared into space. You could see it in his eyes, the friend said. He knew this wasn't going away. And more than that, he wasn't sure if she had actually said it. That was perhaps the most telling part. Because if the voice was undeniably Meghan's, and if it was real, then the implications were monstrous. But if it wasn't? If it was a fake? Then the burden fell on him to go to war for her again, just like he had done so many times before. But this time, he hesitated. Insiders described an immediate divide between Harry and Meghan once the recording went viral. Meghan's reaction, described by sources as furious and confused, was emotional from the start. She reportedly insisted it was fake, that the voice was digitally manipulated, and that the timing was clearly a smear campaign designed to undercut her family. "They're trying to ruin me," she reportedly said. Harry didn't argue. Not at first. But those closest to him noticed the distance. One source stated he didn't jump to her defense the way he usually does. Not immediately. He didn't draft a statement. He didn't call lawyers. He just sat with it. That hesitation was seismic. For a man who had broken from his family, country, and royal legacy in order to stand by his wife, the fact that he didn't immediately push back said everything. He was processing. And with that processing came questions. Questions he might not have allowed himself to ask before. Was this a moment of venting? A cruel joke captured in a private setting? Was it said in anger or exhaustion? Or was it something more, a window into a private resentment that he hadn't acknowledged? The public, of course, wasn't waiting for his analysis. Social media had already painted its narrative. Talk shows ran segments speculating about his marriage. Old clips of Harry speaking glowingly about Kate resurfaced, juxtaposed with the leaked tape, in a silent indictment of how far things had fallen. For Harry, this public humiliation wasn't just about optics, it was about loyalty. He found himself caught between two worlds again, one defined by blood, the other by choice. Kate, the woman he once referred to as the sister he never had, was now the alleged target of his wife's darkest words. And the world was watching to see what he would do. Behind closed doors, those tensions came to a head. According to several sources, Harry and Meghan's private conversation following the leak turned into a quiet standoff. Meghan insisted the recording was fake, but offered no detailed explanation as to how it could have been manufactured. She allegedly urged Harry to issue a public statement declaring it a deepfake and to go after the platforms circulating it. Harry refused, not because he believed it was real, but because he didn't know for sure. That uncertainty, that single moment of doubt, reportedly triggered one of their most difficult conversations in years. Harry demanded to know, "Did you ever say it? Even once? Even as a joke?" Sources say Meghan was horrified by the question. She allegedly responded, "Of course not. You think I would say that?" But her husband's silence reportedly spoke volumes. For the first time, perhaps, Harry was no longer her default shield. He reportedly told his team not to issue any public statements. No denials. No confirmations. Just silence. Meghan, frustrated, considered releasing a personal video statement herself but was advised against it by her legal team, who warned it could escalate the situation or open her up to further scrutiny. In the days that followed, Harry withdrew. He canceled 2 scheduled virtual appearances. He turned off press alerts. And, according to people close to him, he reached out privately to someone in the UK. His brother. Multiple outlets later reported that Harry made contact with Prince William through an encrypted call just 48 hours after the recording leaked. No details of the conversation were shared publicly, but insiders claim it was brief, tense, and unresolved. They spoke, one royal correspondent said, but they didn't reconnect. What was said during that call remains tightly guarded, but some speculate that Harry may have tried to explain himself or gauge William's temperature. Others believe the call was more symbolic, an attempt by Harry to do something, anything, to acknowledge the severity of what had happened. If Harry hoped for understanding, it didn't come. Back in the UK, William, already burdened with preparations for Kate's first appearance since her recovery, reportedly saw the leak as unforgivable. One palace insider said, "For William, it wasn't just an attack on his wife. It was a betrayal of everything he ever trusted about Harry. That coldness, that apparent lack of sympathy from his brother, only deepened Harry's emotional turmoil. By the weekend, Harry was, according to one source, torn in half. His instinct was to protect Meghan. His training, from years within the royal family, was to protect the institution. And his heart, it was conflicted. More than once, friends said, he asked the same haunting question. What if this is how they really see her now? What if there's no coming back?" Internally, Harry's team began reviewing legal options. Could they sue the platforms hosting the audio? Could they pressure journalists to retract their reports? But without clear proof the audio was fake, or evidence of who recorded it, there was no legal path forward. The decision was made: go dark. No statements. No appearances. Let the story burn out on its own. But for Harry, the story wasn't burning out. It was consuming everything he thought he had built. The sanctuary he created in Montecito, one of peace, truth, and healing, was now compromised. The image of him and Meghan as victims had fractured. The court of public opinion had shifted. And behind closed doors, for the first time in a long time, Harry wasn't sure who to protect. In the aftermath of the bombshell leak, the eyes of the world turned not only toward Meghan Markle but squarely onto Catherine, Princess of Wales. The woman allegedly targeted in the private, venomous prayer. The woman the voice in the tape wished dead. Kate Middleton, fresh from her recovery and already under the weight of national anticipation for her reappearance at Trooping the Color, was now navigating not just a royal return, but a personal insult of the most brutal kind. And she did so the way she always had, silently, yet powerfully. To understand the weight of Kate's silence in the days following the recording, one must understand the deep contradiction between her public image and the private firestorm she was likely enduring. Kate, whose grace and restraint have long been praised, is also known within royal circles as someone who does not forgive easily when her children or family are threatened. Sources close to the palace describe her reaction to the tape as one of quiet devastation. According to a senior royal aide, she was heartbroken, not for herself, but for what this said about the state of the family, about how far things had fallen. But true to her form, Kate didn't lash out. There was no furious denial, no public message of outrage. What she chose instead was absence. Total, deliberate, media-starving absence. For a full 72 hours after the tape went viral, she made no appearances, didn't take part in any briefings, and was not seen by the press. It was not a retreat. It was a strategy, one that spoke louder than any response she could have issued. Internally, however, there was movement. The palace's crisis team, long rehearsed in damage control, met to assess the tape's legitimacy and plan their course. This included analysis from royal lawyers, cybersecurity consultants, and communication advisors. Their conclusion: whether the tape was real or fabricated, the perception damage had already occurred, and any reactive move from the royal family would only legitimize it further. So the directive was clear: do nothing. Say nothing. Let the public rage swirl without interruption. Allow Meghan and Harry's camp to respond or fail to. This decision wasn't merely about PR. It was about power. The royal family plays the long game, said former press secretary Michael Hughes. Every time the Sussexes have gone public, the royals have kept silent, and it's worked. The more noise Harry and Meghan make, the more dignified the family appears in contrast. But privately, those close to Kate noted her pain. This was personal, a source stated. It wasn't about scandal or politics. It was about her children, her legacy, her health. To wish her dead, especially now, was something that cut deep. Kate, who had only recently begun resuming royal duties following a months-long battle with undisclosed health complications, had poured herself into preparation for the 2025 Trooping the Color. It was to be her moment of re-entry, of triumph, of reasserting the strength of the monarchy with her by William's side. Now, it was overshadowed by a whisper, a voice, a wish. Despite the hurt, her determination reportedly never wavered. She made it very clear she would still attend, a Kensington Palace aide revealed. She wasn't going to let that recording dictate her place or her presence. And so, the team moved forward. Public appearances were reviewed. The schedule was subtly adjusted. Security was intensified. But the commitment remained. Kate would take her place beside the royal family on the balcony, no matter what. And she would do it without saying a word about the storm swirling around her. That silence, strategic though it was, only fueled speculation. Commentators on both sides of the Atlantic debated whether Kate's quiet approach was dignified or outdated. Some claimed she should release a statement denouncing the content of the audio and condemning hate speech, even if it meant indirectly confronting Meghan. Others applauded her restraint, arguing that the contrast between her composure and the chaos erupting elsewhere only enhanced her image. But within the walls of the palace, there was no ambiguity. Silence wasn't just protocol, it was protection. The royal family, historically, has abided by the doctrine of never complain, never explain, a phrase famously championed by Queen Elizabeth II and long considered the cornerstone of the monarchy's survival in the face of scandal. And though King Charles has been known to be more expressive and modern in his dealings, this moment called for tradition. According to insiders, it was Charles himself who insisted on zero response. He was reportedly enraged by the tape, not just because of what was said, but because of its timing. Coming just days before Trooping the Color, the event designed to project unity and continuity, it forced the family back into the center of a media firestorm they had hoped to avoid. It was sabotage, a senior courtier told a British daily. Intentional, strategic sabotage aimed at one of the most beloved members of the family. Charles, who had spent months nurturing a return to stability following his own health concerns and Kate's public absence, was not about to allow the event to be derailed. His response was immediate and firm. "We do not address it." Not one word. And with that, the matter was officially sealed inside palace walls. But within Kensington Palace, Kate took quiet steps of her own. Sources confirmed that she spent several hours alone in the chapel on palace grounds the morning after the leak. Not to pray for herself, but, according to one aide, for strength to endure the path ahead without anger. It was a moment of solitude that few knew about, but one that said everything about her internal state. She was wounded, the aide admitted, but she was never going to retaliate. She doesn't do chaos. She does resolve. That resolve would be tested in the days leading up to the parade. As speculation continued to swirl, media outlets grew more aggressive. Paparazzi staked out palace exits. Reporters tried to press aides for off-the-record comments. And yet, every attempt to bait a response from the royal camp was met with total silence. The only signal the family gave came not through words, but through optics. For days after the leak, a new official portrait of the Princess of Wales was released on the palace's official Instagram account. The image was simple: Kate in a pale blue dress, seated near a sunlit window, smiling softly. The caption read only, "Strong, steady, present." That one image generated more than 3 million likes in under 48 hours and was widely interpreted as the royal family's silent rebuttal to the chaos erupting in the media. Without ever naming names or referencing the leak, the message was unmistakable. Kate would not be broken. The monarchy would not be baited. And dignity would stand above scandal. The public responded with overwhelming support. Thousands of comments poured in, praising Kate's strength and condemning the cruelty of the recording. The term, "We stand with Kate," began trending on social media platforms, joined by hashtags like #RoyalsRiseAbove and #ProtectKate. In stark contrast, Meghan's social channels remained inactive. No posts, no comments. Just a deafening void that only drew more suspicion. For Kate, this wave of public backing was more than symbolic, it was fortifying. According to insiders, she drew strength from the support. And while she remained silent publicly, those close to her say she spoke privately about forgiveness, not fury. She said, "This is bigger than me," one source quoted her. She knew that responding in anger would only validate the ugliness. So she chose to focus on the day, the tradition, and her family. As the day of Trooping the Color approached, anticipation reached a fever pitch. Media headlines buzzed with speculation. Would Meghan show her face? Would Kate react? Would the balcony moment feel awkward or triumphant? On the morning of the event, Kate emerged, regal, radiant, and unshaken. Dressed in a sleek ivory ensemble with understated pearl jewelry, she stepped into her carriage beside her children, waving with poise and grace. If the events of the previous week had touched her, she didn't show it. As the procession reached Buckingham Palace, she ascended the balcony stairs with William, her posture unwavering. She stood beside the king, her smile calm, her presence commanding. And when the Royal Air Force jets flew overhead in formation, painting the sky in the colors of the Union Jack, the crowd erupted, not just for the monarchy, but for her. No statement had been made. No words had been spoken. But in that moment, Catherine, Princess of Wales, had delivered her response. With presence, with strength, with silence. And it was louder than anything ever leaked on tape. The digital fallout after the audio leak was nothing short of volcanic. As soon as the alleged recording hit the public domain, a shockwave rippled through social media, traditional media, public forums, and private circles alike. For Meghan Markle, it wasn't just another PR crisis. It was the biggest reputational detonation she had ever faced, and it came at the worst possible time, days before one of the monarchy's most symbolically potent events, the Trooping the Color. What happened next can only be described as a coordinated storm, fueled not by royal courtiers or media institutions, but by the anger of everyday people who felt that a boundary had finally been crossed. Within the first 6 hours of the leak, hashtag Meghan Markle trended globally on X, formerly Twitter. Instagram saw millions of interactions involving hashtags like hashtag cancel Meghan and hashtag justice for Kate. And YouTube creators began uploading reaction videos in droves. Public opinion had often been split over Meghan in the past, but this moment appeared to unite critics and skeptics alike. Something about the words on the tape, allegedly wishing death upon Catherine, felt unspeakable, cruel, even unforgivable. Mainstream outlets were cautious at first. The BBC, CNN, and The Guardian withheld judgment, citing ongoing investigations into the recording's authenticity. But tabloid and celebrity-focused outlets ran with the story like wildfire. The Daily Mail led with the headline, "Royal Hate? Meghan accused of wishing Kate dead, secret tape shocks nation." TMZ posted a minute-by-minute breakdown of the audio, while Page 6 sourced experts analyzing the voice. Public opinion didn't wait for validation, it moved on emotion, not evidence. At the heart of the firestorm was one damning question. Was it real? Even among Meghan's staunch defenders, that question became difficult to dismiss. The tone, cadence, and voice in the audio clip bore uncanny resemblance to her own. AI detection experts chimed in, many of them pointing out that the recording showed no signs of synthetic voice manipulation. Others argued that even if altered, the clip seemed drawn from real speech, making it all the more believable. Meghan's team, meanwhile, released no denial. No statement. Nothing. And in PR, silence is not neutral, it's toxic. Commentators who had previously backed Meghan started to waver. On a popular podcast hosted by two former BBC reporters, one remarked, "This might be the end. I don't see how she walks this back unless it's proven a fake, and fast." Public perception pivoted almost overnight. Polls conducted by YouGov in the UK showed a sharp 17% decline in Meghan's favorability among younger demographics, previously her strongest supporters. American public opinion also turned. A Morning Consult poll found that 61% of U.S. respondents believed the recording was likely authentic. A separate survey by Ipsos revealed that 74% of respondents believed Meghan should issue a public apology if the voice was proven to be hers, even if the comment had been taken out of context. The backlash wasn't just digital. Real-world effects unfolded swiftly. A luxury brand Meghan had previously collaborated with on a sustainable fashion campaign suspended their partnership, citing ethical brand alignment concerns. A charity appearance she was scheduled to make in California was postponed indefinitely. Invitations to speak at an upcoming women's empowerment conference were quietly revoked. Even her podcast platform began removing her name from marketing materials. It was an unraveling. But perhaps most damaging was the way even neutral institutions began to distance themselves. A California university that had awarded Meghan an honorary degree issued a statement clarifying that recent public allegations are under review by our Committee on Ethics and Institutional Representation. The implication was devastating, that Meghan Markle, once hailed as a modern icon of feminism and reform, was now considered radioactive. Meanwhile, public anger intensified, particularly among women who had once seen her as a role model. Influencers on TikTok and Instagram began sharing videos denouncing the content of the tape. Some openly admitted their disillusionment, saying things like, "I defended her for years. I believed she was misunderstood. But this is hate. And I can't stand behind that." The betrayal felt personal. The backlash also took a deeply emotional tone because the target of the alleged recording, Kate Middleton, had just recently emerged from a long, health-related absence. The timing made it feel crueler, darker. Royal watchers and casual observers alike noted the devastating implications of wishing death upon a woman already battling illness, especially one who had never responded publicly to past attacks. Several mental health charities publicly condemned the audio clip and emphasized the importance of civility and compassion in public discourse. One particularly scathing statement came from a domestic abuse survivor organization Meghan had once championed. They wrote, "Words matter. And the world is watching. We urge public figures to model empathy."